In the forest, a woman grasped a dagger, and a man held a pry bar, cooperating to take down zombies. It was none other than Maggie and Negan on their way to a supply station.
We should get moving. The others could already be at the satellite post.
Or it could just be us.
It's interesting that they have a blood feud and now they're working together. Negan remained wary of Maggie, fearing that she might not resist the urge to kill him. So, he suggested, "I think we should trust each other to survive together." Maggie, unapologetically, responded, "Why should I trust you if I want to survive? The only way is for me to disregard you." Negan shook his head helplessly.
If that's how you feel, I don't understand why you haven't put me down yet.
As soon as Negan finished speaking, his face turned horrified. Though Maggie's strike was aimed at the zombies, she didn't care about his life or death. Negan reminded himself to stay extremely vigilant for their future actions. An hour later, they finally reached the supply station, a town that had long been abandoned and in disrepair. They carefully surveyed the surroundings, wary that the Reapers might be monitoring nearby. The beige house was where their team had left the supplies. Maggie found the food, all of it hidden in the basement. Negan checked the house and concluded that no one had been here before, possibly meaning that their companions had been killed by the Reapers. Maggie, however, was convinced that someone had survived and would come here eventually. All they had to do was wait. Negan tried to persuade her. "The longer we wait, the higher the chance those lunatics find us. And what good does it do to take this food back? How long will this little bit last?" He advised waiting until sunset. If no one came by then, it would mean that the others were most likely dead. Maggie wanted to argue, but Negan was stating the uncomfortable truth she didn't want to accept. So, they waited until the sun went down, and still, no one came. Negan stood up to pack the supplies. He was leaving to take the food back to the Alexandria safe zone. He told Maggie that this mission was over, and the others wouldn't be coming. Negan didn't want to clash with Maggie. He simply believed that they needed to keep a clear head and not let sibling bonds cloud their judgment. It was at this moment that they heard footsteps outside, followed by the door opening. They immediately went on guard. It was Gabriel and Cole. Thank the heavens they were still alive. Though Gabriel had sustained a leg injury, Cole helped Gabriel sit against the wall as they reunited in the forest. They had assumed that if Maggie was alive, she would come here. Then Gabriel asked how the others were doing. Maggie, with a heavy heart, replied, "Duncan and Agatha, they're both gone. Alden got hurt, so we left him at a church by the roadside. Daryl and Frost are missing." After Maggie spoke, she glanced at Negan. Negan didn't bring up leaving anymore. He simply sat down with them, waiting. Little did they know that the people they were waiting for had been captured and taken to the Reapers' camp. Frost was being tortured just to get him to tell them where the others were. Pope was looking at Daryl with a cozy smile on his face.
This bother you?
Done worse.
Why don't you take a turn then?
Daryl understands that these people don't fully trust him and want to test him. As Daryl witnessed his comrade being tortured and mangled, anger surged within him. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he dared not show it. Daryl stepped forward, his forearm clasping Frost's neck. This ordeal lasted for a grueling dozen seconds. Then, he released Frost and retorted, "I know what I'm doing. Don't need your damn interference." Daryl locked eyes with Frost.
Just give them a location where your friends are hiding. You do that, this all goes away.
Yeah, that's a good offer. Or, and hear me out, you all could go eat shit instead. Just a thought.
Brandon, growing impatient, quipped, "Is this all you've got? I have used these methods." Daryl understood that Frost was trying to play along. Daryl shed his jacket and turned to take a knife from Leah. At this point, both the Reapers had their weapons ready, wary of Daryl's intentions.
I don't think you understand. I'm the best shot you got.
Why? We friends now.
No, not because we're friends. Because I'm the one holding the knife.
Daryl's words carried the unspoken message that he was prepared to use the knife to eliminate these Reapers and rescue Frost. But Frost looked at Brandon and Leah's hands. That was also a warning to Daryl not to do anything rash.
I know you're close to her. The leader. Close enough to know where they're hiding.
Daryl then pressed the knife against Frost's index finger. Pope nodded and Brandon had his gun out and ready. If Daryl truly belonged to their group, He might turn against them now.
Just say a location so we can all walk away happy.
Frost naturally understood that Daryl was imploring him to reveal the location, and that Maggie and the others would deal with it themselves when the time came. Daryl's cut was so strong that even Leah was moved.
Location!
Tunnel of 283. Yellow house.
Daryl let out a sigh of relief. If this guy didn't talk soon, he wasn't sure whether he should continue or resist. Hope was satisfied. He had both tested Daryl and learned the location of those people. Leah volunteered to scout ahead, but Pope insisted she take a small team and bring Daryl along to investigate. After this incident, Daryl had gained their initial trust, and he was allowed to keep his weapons. Half an hour later, a group of 6 arrived at the small town and quickly spotted the yellow house that Frost had mentioned. They immediately went on high alert, taking cover behind their vehicles to observe. The area around the house was eerily quiet, showing no signs of recent human activity. There were 2 entrances, one in the front and one in the back. Leah issued orders, instructing her team to split into pairs and attempt to flank the house from behind. They then proceeded cautiously toward the direction of the house. Daryl trailed behind Leah. Feeling uneasy, he contemplated what to do if Maggie and the others were indeed inside. He hadn't been assigned a specific task. He was simply told to support from behind. Soon the Reapers were approaching the house. They were all special forces before the end of the world, and they were very good at these things. Daryl was in a hurry, and instead of following first, he looked at the wires on the roof of the car and shook it vigorously. He hoped that if there were people inside, they could see what was going on outside and take precautions in time. Fortunately, Maggie did indeed notice through a crack in the door. The wires couldn't shake on their own. Someone had to be out there. 3 minutes later, Brandon broke down the door and they rushed in to check, but it was empty. Daryl also breathed a sigh of relief. Maggie and the others weren't inside. Leah, on the other hand, noticed bloodstains on a bandage on the table that were still fresh, suggesting that those people had been here not long ago. Daryl paid no attention to them and proceeded upstairs to search. 3 minutes later, they had scoured the entire house and found no one. However, as Daryl descended the stairs, he noticed that the carpet had been shifted, and the patterns on the floor were different, indicating a hidden compartment below. Daryl's heart raced. Maggie and the others were likely hiding down there. It's important that the Reapers don't see this. So, while no one was looking, Daryl quickly adjusted the position of the carpet. Brandon came over to report that there was no one in the upstairs rooms. Daryl promptly suggested, "Maybe they escaped from the back. We should go after them." Negan and the others did hide in the dark compartment and they could hear Daryl clearly. Leah realized that they were both hostile and that it was normal for them to argue and that they would be fine as long as they were separated. So Leah orders Brandon to go upstairs and double-check to make sure he's not missing anything. Then, Leah advised Daryl that since they were all part of the same team, he shouldn't provoke Brandon any further, or it wouldn't end well. After Leah left, Daryl stepped onto the carpet, making sure that the people below wouldn't be discovered.
They ran, they ain't coming back here. I mean, think about it. You hit them hard. Even if they got more people, they wouldn't come back here. It's a bad move. You'd see them coming from a mile away. Trust me, they ran.
Brandon was quite puzzled by Daryl's sudden change in attitude. In reality, Daryl's brief comments had already given away the Reaper's position and approximate numbers to Maggie and the others. Later, Daryl pretended to have a dispute with Brandon to divert attention. Brandon was pissed. He wanted to teach the guy he thought was a rookie a lesson, and Brandon advised Leah that Daryl was in cahoots with the group. As we all saw, however, Leah stood by her judgment and Daryl saved her from the roaring fire.
If you think this guy is ever gonna give a shit about any of us, you're gonna fail.
No, he's right. I don't give a shit about any of you. Except you. I'm here for you. It's no secret I made mistakes. But I'm here right now. Maybe I'd be better at it this time, if you'd let me.
Daryl's words moved Leah once again. Leah decided not to dwell on the conflict and instructed them to search immediately, realizing that they had already wasted too much time. Brandon wanted to say more but was interrupted by Leah, who directed them to focus on the task at hand. That's when Brandon noticed the mat on the floor. Daryl had his knife drawn and was ready to strike. But to Brandon's dismay, there was no one down there. In reality, while Daryl and Brandon argued, Maggie had already led her group out through the hidden door. That night, Leah and her team returned to their base, where Pope approached. Ready to hear their report, Brandon apologized, saying, "When we got there, Everyone had already left. This operation was a failure. Upon hearing this news, Pope didn't react with anger as he usually did. Instead, he chuckled and informed them, "While you were away, I had a nice little chat with our guest. He may not have said much, but I got everything I needed." He looked at Daryl with a smile, sending a chill down Daryl's spine. Could it be that Frost had spilled everything? Pope continued to smile and then turned to gaze at the distant trees. Frost had already turned into a zombie. Daryl stood there, expressionless, overwhelmed with sorrow and anger, but from the looks of it, Pope shouldn't have known he was undercover, otherwise he would have been arrested as soon as they met.